Hey everyone, this is Teresa Hegel, Executive Editor of Special Projects and Sustainability at ASI.
And this is Cassie Green, Content Director of Apparelist and Editor at Printing United Alliance. And you're listening to
Branding Together,
a new adventure into the converging worlds of print and promo.
We're here to bring you an engaging monthly discussion that dissects just how closely each of these industries align. Whether you're a promotional products distributor, commercial printer, apparel decorator, or a little bit of everything, our topics and guests will bring the ultimate crossover conversation.
When you're ready to bring your business to the next level, get lost in this month's episode, which is set to happen in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome everybody. It's the month of June and this is another episode of Branding Together. I'm Teresa Hegel, Executive Editor for Special Projects and Sustainability at ASI, and I'm joined as always by Cassie Green of Apparelist and Printing United Alliance. As I said, this is June and our theme this month is kind of all about rebranding, renaming, refreshing yourself. We have a great guest, Lindsay Reed of Emblem, who will be joining us later. But first, let's kind of start with our headlines. So what do you have for us, Cassie?
Yeah, thanks, Teresa. Excited for today's episode, but we've got some exciting headlines happening. The first one I wanted to call out from our side of the industry is we actually hosted a legislative fly-in, probably a few weeks ago now, and this is really exciting because one of the things we do as an alliance is advocate for the printing industry on behalf of our members, but just as the industry as a whole. So really this legislative fly-in was designed to educate members of Congress on the issues that do impact and affect the printing industry. So this took place in Washington, D.C. on May 15th. And then executives from, all verticals of the printing industry. So that includes commercial, graphics, direct mail, wide format, book, label, apparel, all met with members of Congress and their staffs to discuss specific policy issues. They even invited representatives to tour some facilities. Dave Liskuski, who's our president, did some speaking and presenting. Really exciting event for us. And just a way to highlight what we do as an alliance. And it does, a lot of the legislative things that, run through even local, national governments do impact the printing industry. Probably some of our listeners remember we've talked about like this ban on carbon black and things like that. So obviously really cool headline. And I provide a link in the show notes so people can read more.
Yeah, and I do want to also mention that Promo was represented at this fly-in as well because our corporate vice president, Stephanie Cohn-Schaefer, was on hand. And I actually kind of took some from your story and added some of her her comments into a story on ASI Central. But yes, the print and promo industry was there representing all of the issues of importance. So the first thing I wanted to highlight was we recently published our 2025 Salespeople of the Year package. This is something we do every year where we highlight kind of the top performing salespeople in the promo industry, distributors and suppliers. And we write kind of just nice little profiles about, what they've done, why they had such a stellar year, it's a great way to look at what is working in promo sales and maybe some ideas that you can emulate to kind of boost your own sales progress. So it's a really big package of stories. Everybody kind of worked on a couple, but I think there's some really good stuff in there. So it's worth looking into that.
Yeah, no, I love that you share the stories and advice. It's something that I think a lot of people can take away tidbits from. Everybody loves hearing other people's stories and saying, hey, what worked for this person? What didn't work for this person? How can I apply that to my...
Oh, and I should mention, as a callback to one of our earlier episodes, rubber duckies were mentioned in this package. Oh, somebody did something with custom rubber ducks. So it is a thing.
I love rubber ducks. And oh my gosh, Teresa, I'm laughing to myself because... maybe not, rubber ducks might make a reappearance on this episode later.
What?
I'm just gonna throw that out there. So people better stick around because who doesn't like talking about rubber ducks?
That could be our new theme.
Yeah. We'll just find a way to incorporate rubber ducks into
Yeah,
every episode going
yeah, I
forward.
think so. I think so. All right, what is your other news?
Yes, other news. Again, from the Alliance side, is registration is officially open for Printing United Expo 2025. So, for anybody following along, the expo will take place October 22nd through 24th at the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida. So, if you're one of those people who feels the need to build on a Disney trip in tandem with the expo, I personally recommend it. So, just, go for it. However, like I said, it has opened. We will do some typical things like the Women in Print Alliance and Student Day programming. Apparel Zone will be a huge part of it again this year. And then, of course, Alliance members do receive VIP perks and access to the expo. If you have not been to this event, get ready. It's huge. It's a lot of fun. We are starting to engage with ASI, and while our official pavilion won't take place until 2026, this is a fun way to really start engaging even with the promo side of the industry. So it's definitely an event worth attending. So if
Yeah,
you are ready to register, click on the link, get registered. We'll see you there.
I'm going to be there
Yes.
actually, and I think I'm actually teaching a class. So,
Yes.
if you weren't going to go before, now you definitely have to because why would you want to miss
Obviously.
that?
Right, you've got to attend Teresa's class, people. Come on. Let's go.
I'll be very, very offended and sad, and cry in my hotel room at night if nobody comes.
That won't
Yeah.
happen. Plenty of people are going to attend. I have no doubt in my mind you will have standing room only.
Okay. So I have one more piece of news that I wanted to share before we get into the rest of the show. And it's also sales related. So we also, another thing that we published recently is our annual sales compensation survey, which is, filled with research. Um, Basically, I think that the thing that is most interesting about it this year is that in previous years, there's been a trend away from commission-based sales where people wanted actual salary instead of just like commission. But there's actually been a surprising resurgence in the past year of more commission-based payments. So I think that's pretty interesting. Another thing with like slow industry sales and kind of a reversal in the labor market, another thing that's happened is cutbacks in benefits and things like that. So there's a lot of good research and data in this package, and it's always our designers always present it in a way that I think is very visually appealing and easy to understand. So it's definitely worth checking that out.
It's another way to just make sure you're plugged into what's going on in the industry, understanding the trends and how different economic events and things impact our industry.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Okay, so let's move on to our next section. The one thing I wanted to kind of start things off with was talking about the idea of branding and refreshing your brand. So I thought it'd be fun if we could sort of describe our own personal brands in three adjectives, and then perhaps how that has changed over the years. So do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
It doesn't matter, but I have to say, this was a struggle for me. I am one of those people who my personal brand could be one thing one day, and then within 24 hours it might change.
Well, that could
So
be
maybe,
that could be it, changeable
yeah, maybe that's one of my adjectives is um
or
yeah,
chameleon.
changeable. I was trying to think of a really like funny one to represent that. So let me marinate on it a little bit more
Okay,
while you go
all right,
and
I'll go
share
first.
share
So
me.
the three that I came up with. Um, are creative, curious, and collaborative. Um,
Ooh, and even some alliteration there.
you got it. Well,
Speaking to
that's
our
I love
editors.
alliteration. And I mean, I kind of agree with you too, though, that it's hard. It is hard to boil yourself down into three adjectives
Right.
because yeah, we change all the time on any given day, and then I overthink everything. So I'm like, well, I'm saying this about myself, but what if everyone else is like, that's not what she's like. She's totally not like that. You know what I mean? So I definitely I think this is an exercise that can be maybe humbling, but also just kind of it can be a bit of a struggle. And as far as how that's changed over the years, I think the creativity and the curiosity are sort of, they've been there all along, but I think it's the collaboration is something that I've had to kind of cultivate. It's a skill that it's like a muscle that you have to cultivate. At least for me, I'm more of a lone wolf. Like, as writers, we like to kind of do things on our own, get in front of our computer and just like type away. But there is a lot of value in collaborating, as we can see from this podcast in itself. Uh,
Mhm.
so so for me, embracing the collaboration, I think is something that I think I've been able to do, and I'm trying to do. So that's why I put it in there, because I think that that's an important trait to build.
Yeah. For the record, I agree with all three of yours.
Oh, good. So
You
I
definitely
wasn't
are very
overthinking too
creative.
much.
No, that's really insightful. That is something that the collaboration
Mhm.
part in particular speaks to me. So, as a fellow journalist, when I was coming into, my profession and really saying, hey, what do I want to do with my life? All that stuff. I am the same. I very much like to be behind the scenes. I like to create something that then gets pushed out and people engage with. But it's more about that beautiful magazine layout. It was more about that now, digital layout of a feature, a really cool article, and how are people engaging with the content. And it was less about my personal brand. And that is interesting because I find myself relating to that collaboration aspect, to where now we as journalists are more forward facing. We are
Right.
more in the light rather than being behind the scenes. And it's an equal mix, I feel like now, but that's a very interesting observation, an adjective to use,
Yes.
because I feel that to my soul. Then it is also interesting how we change
Yeah.
over the years, depending on what life is throwing at us, both personally and professionally. Our brand might change a little bit, it might change a lot of bit. Who really knows? But that's the beautiful thing about being a human, is we can change our personal brand
Right.
if we so
Right.
choose.
Yeah, and I
So,
think I think that the thing that's things like compassion, empathy, and collaboration even, I've heard people describe it as being like muscles, and you have to kind of
yes,
work them out. So it's not like a natural necessarily a natural innate thing. I think we all have some innate like empathy, but sometimes it takes a little bit more work to kind of keep that in our kind of busy day to day. There's a lot going on. Um, so you do some of this you do have to kind of cultivate. You have to kind of decide what you want your adjectives to be
right,
and then work to make that your brand.
right. I love that. I love it. Okay, so I didn't get a lot of time to think about the one adjective. Before we get into that one, we can go with my other two
Okay.
adjectives. So the first one I chose was colorful. Um, Anybody who knows me knows that my wardrobe contains a lot of neon and 90s garments. I have a pair of rainbow shoes. I'm
Love
just
it.
all about like color. This amazing world we live in is very colorful, and I think that I really just like colorful. I love pops of color and excitingness. And excitingness, is that a word?
It can be
And
now.
so that
We'll add
great,
it.
it is now. Yeah, we're making it a word. Teresa and Cassie TM stamp the word excitedness. So that was my first adjective. My second adjective was trustworthy. And I feel like that's kind of a personal brand and a professional brand that sort of spans who I am as Cassie Green and then who we are as apparelist. And okay, so the third one, maybe changeable is the word I'm just going to go with. Something that is
Or maybe
just
you're adaptable.
adaptable. Also, a really good adjective, really good descriptive word. I can't put my finger on it, and maybe that's why I am the way I am. I have always, embraced the ADD side of myself. I that it is part of who I am. It is what it is. It's fine. We've found a way to deal with it and cope with it and live with it. And maybe that's what it is, and I'm not saying that in a negative way in any way, shape, or form. It's just my brain is constantly in a world of like, hey, here's what's going on today, but here's what's going on tomorrow. And yeah, maybe adaptable. Now I have to adapt my personal brand to that, and that's fine. I'm okay with it. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
just be what we
I would
are.
say that the trustworthiness and the adaptability are both really great qualities as a journalist, right? Because trust is something we really have to build, and
Yes.
it's easy to lose, but so important to have. And the adaptability is because we're not in a job where you're doing the same exact thing every day. So if you can't handle that kind of uh, lifestyle, that kind of work day, then this isn't really the right job for you. So
Right.
maybe that this is all good for what you do with your life. So
There you go. And you and I, we are not B2C journalists. We are B2B journalists. And in this industry, the print and promo industry, there is a lot that changes. I mean, like you just said, there was a trend where salespeople were moving away from commission based and now seem to be moving back toward it. And so the industry that we work in is constantly being forced to adapt and change to what's happening around it in order to be successful. And I
right.
think that's something that we just start to have ingrained in us is we work with it, we change with it, and we accept that part of the industry. And I think that's a really cool thing because otherwise it gets stagnant.
Yeah, totally, totally. All right, well, this was a great discussion, and I think it segues really nicely into the interview we have planned. So, without further ado, I want to introduce Lindsay Reed. She is the founder and CEO of the promo distributor Emblem. That's EMBLM, in Elliott, Maine. And she's also the president of Direct Printing and Graphics. So Lindsay, who grew up in the print and promo space, she actually bought her parents' business in 2020 and then last year underwent a total company rebrand. So today we're going to be talking with her about her experiences in print and the promo side of the business, but as well as the challenges that she has encountered as she did her rebrand. All right, Lindsay, it's so nice to have you on the show today. And I just kind of wanted to start out kind of from the beginning. So, can you tell us a little bit about your parents' business and what it was like growing up in this industry?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, my parents started direct printing and graphics in 1993. My dad grew up working in offset printing. I think his first job ever was in a print shop. So, I have very vivid memories of visiting these, high noise, high chaotic print shops. I know the smell of ink. I know the chaos of a bindery. Those are all really kind of comforting sounds and smells for me, like still today. But when I joined the team in 2016, I had the intention of building up the merchandising side of the business. That was always an aspect they offer for somebody that like needed pens. Um, when I created this role and this idea for myself. I left my previous job, and I remember when I quit the job, my boss said to me, isn't the print industry dying? And I thought, no, it's not, and it's different. And that was a great thought, reassurance for me that that was exactly what I needed to do. I really felt something different when I came onto direct printing graphics and with the idea of building Emblem and making it my own. I've learned so much from my parents. And my dad is a true salesperson. Anything he sells, you can buy. And then my mom really she's so smart. She was really the silent leader behind the company. So she was the reason why everything happened. She made sure that the budget was right and that, the marketing was right and that everything was kind of the fuel and the power behind it. So I'd like to think I have a little bit of both.
That is so fun. And that's one of the things Teresa and I were kind of talking about this episode is first of all, the printing industry has been quote unquote dying for decades
Oh,
now.
I know.
And yet
Yep,
we are still here doing great and changing and evolving. And that's one of the
absolutely.
things we've talked about this episode. And one of the things that stood out to me when Teresa and I were talking about, who is Lindsay? What does Emblem look like? You bought your parents' business in 2020,
Mm.
and we all know what happened in 2020. There's this
Oh,
little thing
yeah.
called the COVID pandemic. So
Part of
talking
it.
about change, can you talk about that experience? I mean, what was that like? What strategies did you have to use to really stay afloat and adapt and change during a challenging period?
Yeah. So, I mean, we had the date in line for many, many years. We always knew that I was going to buy the business in March of 2020. The ink was literally barely dry when the world shut down. I think the date of the business that I signed the document was March 4th. At the same time, my husband and I were planning a wedding. That was supposed to be April of 2020. So personally and professionally, things were just crashing. So naturally, I did what anyone would do. I cried and then I got pregnant. So no, but seriously, I mean, I really believe that Emblem's success today is because of our start. Because I bought the business in 2020, even though the business had been around since 1993, we were considered a startup. So we were not eligible for any of the government funding that came along with that time. But we didn't give up. We really were able to just be scrappy and meet our clients where they were at and figured out solutions for problems that they were having too. We easily could have just shut down and said that was really it. But we were able to find alternative sources of funding. And really, that was one of our more successful years. We were able to kind of push through. So I don't think that we could be where we are today if we didn't have that crazy start to our story.
That's really cool. I'm glad that you were able to push through. It was such a weird, challenging time, and everybody was kind of scrambling to do, I don't know, whatever they could. Like it was when everyone was getting into like the PPE.
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 Yeah.
I kind of forgot what it was already. I used to write about it all the
Yeah.
time. Um,
I know. We sold some of that.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I remember specifically one of our clients asked us, you know, we're looking for these gowns, for everyone on the floor for this, medical device company. And it was a huge opportunity. And I had to stop myself to think, I don't know anything about selling PPE gowns. And what is the liability here? So while the money was there and everyone was chasing it and it was like a hot dumpster fire that people were like diving in, we definitely stuck with what we were good at and didn't go outside of our means.
Awesome. So I wanted to kind of move forward a few years to last year. I know you guys kind of underwent this full rebrand with a refreshed website. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to go that route and do the rebrand? And then just some of the biggest lessons you learned in this whole process.
Yeah, I mean the rebrand of Emblem was huge for us. It was honestly a little overdue. Since we came up with the name of Emblem and the story of Emblem in really early 2020, we had changed so much and evolved so much as a company. The type of work that we were doing and the type of clients that we were working with, our brand really didn't reflect that. It felt a little dated, it was a little generic, and it just wasn't telling the right story anymore. So the new look, the new site, aligning everything in our messaging and our visual identity to be this new, more intentional, creative merch deliverer with strategy, as opposed to just somebody that takes your logo and puts it on things, was really purposeful for us. Since the rebrand, the messaging and the feedback has been huge, not just with new clients, but people that really know us too. Um, I I would say it was a labor of love. It's a lot of work. There are a lot of things on a website that you don't realize and think about. There's two big takeaways that I have from the rebrand. One is work with the best people. Don't take it on yourself if it's not something that you are good at. We worked with some pretty amazing creatives, and then also our team internally have some amazing creatives on it. And then, we didn't do anything that we weren't comfortable with, but we did definitely push ourselves out of what we were doing before. And then the other thing is that just don't do it until it's perfect. It's never going to be perfect. We could have spent forever tweaking every little thing. But at some point you just have to launch it and test it and then refine it down the end. And I'm constantly in there, changing things and keeping it fresh.
Yeah, really interesting to hear you talk about it as a labor of love because it sounds like there's also some personal branding for yourself tied into that as well, I'm sure.
Big time.
Yeah.
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 It's direct printing and graphics is still around and exists, and it's a name that people know, and people know my family associated with it. Emblem is definitely my baby. And it's been fun to see it grow.
Oh, I love that. So you can definitely hear the passion coming through. One of the things, Lindsay, we are very passionate about here is this idea of convergence and this, merging of the print and promo industries that we are seeing more and more these days. So you're someone who does run both a promo and print business. So can you tell us a little bit, what are the differences that you see between each side of that business or each side of your business? And then do you, because of that, approach that differently? Do you do different things in each one? Do you find yourself translating things across the board? What's that like?
You know, this could be a controversial thought, but I actually really don't think they're that different. I think that there are more intersections between the two than people realize. We find our favorite projects that we work with our clients are people that do a little bit of everything, right? So it's a full kitted project that has a custom box and that has an insert, and then it has these really thoughtful promotional merchandising options in there. And then it has a fulfillment aspect and it tells a story. I think that people in our industry are really limiting themselves if they're just doing one. We try to be the solution to everyone's problems. And I think a lot of people's problems are in print or they're in merchandising. And if you can actually have the ability of doing both, I think that's the sweet spot. I think as far as challenges, I don't know if it's a challenge as much as I think there's an opportunity for both sides of these industries that the face of the industry is changing. As we talked about before, I grew up in this industry. Every person that I was introduced to when my dad brought me to these sales calls and these print shops were guys that looked like him, right? And I am seeing so much more on LinkedIn and so much more at conferences and at industry events that it's women that are filling this space. And their voices are getting louder and, they're not just on the distributor side, but also on the supplier side. I think that we need, and Cassie, maybe this is a call for you. We need more women decorators out there. I mean, I would die to have a women-owned decorator shop and if there's one out there, if you're listening, hit me up, emblemade.com. There's just something about a woman running a shop like that would change it for so many people.
I might be able to help you there, Lindsay. I have a few in mind.
Okay, slide into my DMs because that is something that my
I love
team
it.
has been waving the flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking of sliding into DMs, but
That
no, I mean,
transition, I
like,
didn't think you were
I
going to
think
say
that
it.
you're very active on LinkedIn, at least, because that's where I found you. I never knew who you were, never heard of you until I saw a post you had made on LinkedIn. Um, so can you talk a little bit about how you are using that platform to kind of build your brand and build yourself as an industry thought leader? And also, do you have any kind of tips and strategies for people who want to kind of go the same route as you?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn has been a game changer for me in terms of, building both personal brand, but also industry credibility. I think you're right, Teresa. A lot of people don't know who I am or who Emblem is. We're a relatively small organization and we're young. I think people know all the big names in this industry, and a lot of times people who are smaller can just use the resources that are given to them and don't try to stand out a little bit. What's working best for me on LinkedIn is just being genuinely helpful and trying to share behind the scenes content. So, especially things that people in the merch space like aren't talking about. So why certain things fail, projects that didn't hit when you thought they were, making swag that people actually want. I think that there's striking a balance between like expertise and just being human and personalizing posts. Um, I think some of my best performing posts per se weren't super polished. They weren't written by ChatGPT. Just signing on, like writing honest insights about, what I'm doing every day. A few tips I'd share. I think be consistent. So don't just post and run away. I think you have to comment, you have to engage, you have to build your community. And then finally, just show your face. Videos are hard. I have taken a million takes to try to get videos out. But again, kind of going back to the rebrand, it doesn't have to be perfect. No one's expecting you to say it without stuttering or making a mistake. Just show your face and I know stand behind the content that you have.
That's great.
Love it. We do a video newsletter every week, and man, do I do a lot of takes.
You can always tell when I'm doing content because my like photo screenshot on my phone is just a million pictures of my face. And then I forget which one it is, and then eventually you just give up and you say, I'm just gonna post it.
Right.
And that those are the ones that always are, I think, most genuine.
Agreed. Fully agreed. So, speaking of sort of building that brand, building that identity, Lindsay, if you could rebrand yourself, maybe it's a new name, maybe it's a new look, maybe you give yourself a tagline. What would that be?
Yeah, I love this question. Of course, I always think about it in terms of merch, right? Um, Mine would be Mom on Mute. I think that my tagline would be quietly crushing chaos.
Ooh.
And here's what I thought of on this is that I have two young boys. And I'm also growing a business and our team is constantly growing and it's a juggling. I'm really managing two businesses. It's a juggling act. So I find that I'm always doing that while telling my kids to stop yelling. So I think that it would be Mom on Mute. And I have a lot of great brand strategies for that. So, keep an eye out for that.
Brilliant.
Cassie, you're a mom of boys as well, so I assume you can
Yeah.
relate to this.
Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing like it.
Two boys. I think today, as they were getting in the car to go to school, one of them actually shoved the other one out of the car door
No.
Yeah. I
so
mean,
that
it's
he could get
survival
in
of the
first.
fittest over here. It's survival of the fittest.
I have an only child. That's a very different experience, I think, but it has its own
Hey,
challenges. But
it sure does,
Yeah.
and I'm finding it the cool part about being on LinkedIn and all these industry things that you see people posting is that, and maybe it's COVID that started it, but it's very accepting to be on a call with somebody and having like a meaningful conversation and then have them be in the background and be like, "Take it down." It's just great to have people be human again. And the industry's been through a lot, and I think it's getting better, and it's been fun to be a part of. We're really lucky to be where we're at, and I think my colleagues feel the same.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I love that we
uh,
can acknowledge our humanness now and that we are people that have families and other obligations and we can juggle it, and if we give ourselves that grace and let other people have these things happen, it's so much easier to juggle it and, quote unquote have it all.
absolutely, and that's not possible. What a myth. So anyway, it's been really great being on here, and thank you so much for having me. It's you know nice to have people recognize what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you
Well,
so much for joining
wow.
us.
Wow. Yeah, no, thank you, Lindsay. That is really cool. It's looking forward to seeing more from Emblem, from you, and seeing how you grow and just become a powerhouse. I have no
Quietly
doubt in my
crush
mind.
it.
You're right.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, Lindsay, thanks again for joining us. What a great discussion about something that probably hits home with a lot of people, not only going through a rebrand, but the timing with her purchasing her parents' business and all of that is quite a neat story. So, it is time for the final part of our show, Teresa, where we get to have a little fun. And I usually find myself trying not to belly laugh through this last part of our podcast. Hopefully, all of you listeners enjoy it. This month, Teresa came up with something really funny. So we have each selected 5 random things. Could be anything, could be a person, place, animal, idea, thing, whatever, and the other person has 10 seconds to rebrand it with a funny or silly name. So this should be pretty hilarious.
I hope so.
I'm excited, Teresa. So, who wants to go first? Do you want to share yours first? Do you want me to share mine first and you come up with a funny name? What
Why
do
don't we
you,
go
how,
back and forth and I'll go first with
I,
yours.
okay,
One
all
for you.
right. Let's turn on the brain.
All right.
Let's turn on that creative side of our
Yes.
journalist brain
All
and
right, here we
let's
go. Here we
go.
go. One. The first one is airports.
Wild, wild west of flying.
I was gonna say
Because
like
we're
soul sucking time wastes, but
yeah, soul sucking. I was trying so hard to think of something positive because Where else are you gonna find somewhere that you can have a beer at 6 in the morning and also pay $30 for said beer?
Well, there's the tagline.
I love it. Oh man. Okay, my first one. This is inspired by my children. So,
Okay, I'm ready.
pancakes.
Oh, circles of joy.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Circles of joy. Ah,
Syrup
we can
delivery
just stop there.
system.
Love it.
All right, here's your next one. Okay, this one, I guess I didn't really go with anything really fun. So these are all like kind of painful things, but utility bills.
Oh, we already used soul sucking, so I guess I can't use messengers of financial turmoil.
Oh, I like that. It has some gravitas to it.
Again, how do we make these not sound sort of sad?
I don't know. It might be
That
impossible.
was that was a good one though. I didn't even like think to go that direction. Okay. All right, next one for me.
Okay.
Hummingbirds.
Oh, oversized insects.
Okay, yeah, no, I can see that. They sound like insects when they're flying. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, these are our first like quick answers. It doesn't mean they're good or right or you know, have anything positive about them. We have 10 seconds, so you're gonna get what you get. All right.
Right.
Here's the next one. Email.
Oh, I can't get past it is the ping on my phone. So let's go with that. Ping on my phone.
Ping on my phone.
For the record, can I just say, as we are recording this episode, it is still morning time for me, so the brain has not yet gotten there.
It makes it funnier though, I think. For me anyway.
Oh man, so many people are going to be laughing at us by the end of this. This is great. All right. That's actually perfect for my next one because my next one is computer.
Computer. Um ooh. Glowing rectangle of doom.
We went You went iRobot direction on that one.
Well, it feels like that on many days, but yes, it's not always doom, but come on. Sometimes it feels pretty dire to have to be stuck in front of this computer all day.
It does. It does. Oh man. Okay, well at least we're laughing. Like you said, we're laughing.
All right. Next one is broccoli.
Oh, little bushes of goodness because I love broccoli.
I actually love broccoli too, so I was curious to see if this was going to be a negative one for you or a positive.
Oh yeah, I think that's probably a pretty polarizing
Yeah.
topic, broccoli.
I think somebody I knew once used to refer to broccoli as nature's scrubbing bubbles, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, dang it. That one's way better than mine. Let's
He
go with
probably
that
thought
one.
of it after like more than 10 seconds though, so
Right. Yeah, yeah, that person had the advantage. Also, now I feel like we should probably poll our listeners and be like broccoli, yay or nay.
I like that idea. Put that poll in there.
Love it. Okay, my next one is toddler, as in
Okay,
child.
toddler. Okay. Um, tiny package of joy and destruction.
Okay. I was wondering if that last part was going to be added on.
I mean, it kind of has to be, but
Right. So this is going to sound really terrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's a radio show I used to listen to, and they would do this segment called Drunk or Toddler, and that's all I can ever think about.
I mean, that's a pretty clever and apt
Right.
analogy. All right, so my last one for you is root canal.
Oh. Okay, so for the record, before I start my 10 seconds, never had a root canal, but I've heard they're terrible. So, that being said, root canal, death by drill.
That's my drill. I like it.
I don't know. That's how my husband would describe it, I feel like.
Probably.
That was good. Okay, my last one, and I'm so excited to say this, rubber duck.
Um, oh my goodness, now I have to get a really good one. Rubber duck. I love rubber ducks. Uh, floating floating brand vehicle.
Yes,
Because
I
we know
love
that we
it.
can customize them, so let's lean
Right,
into that part of it.
right. And it's purely coincidental that I happened, like, I did not change my list from when I was coming up with these ideas as we did the introduction to this episode. So I have to say, my heart is happy that this happened.
I'm just hoping we can continue to organically bring rubber ducks into the podcast whenever possible. But I think we should just kind of forget about it each month and then like be surprised that we brought it up again. Like I don't want to like force it in here, but if we somehow just sort of I don't know, rubber duck randomly appears, that'll be good.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's just lean into the accidental organic rubber duck showing itself whenever it just happens.
Yes. All right, well on that note, I want to say thank you to everyone for listening. We'll be back again next month with some more fun stuff and possibly rubber ducks, but we cannot make guarantees because we don't want to jinx it. But have a great day, everybody.